Hi, my name is Matt Norman. I teach English 010 on the Vincennes campus. And the purpose of this video is to talk a little bit about the nature of the course as it relates to developing units that are integrated with their reading and writing purposes. Now, it's happened in the past where, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, where it's very possible to see these two elements of the course as being very separate. And I thought it would be a good idea just to show you folks a example of the unit design in how the parts of reading and writing kind of interweave with each other and show the kind of connection. The way that I found that work best is to kind of think of a certain theme for a unit or an assignment and then just kind of weave the readings into that. And so here are a couple of examples. I'm sure that my syllabus and schedule will be made available or can be made available, certainly. My email address, I should say, is mnorman@binu.edu, and that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Again, that's mnorman@binu.edu. And if you want a copy of any of the things that I talk about here today, I'm more than happy to send it. And I think our plan is to make a resource site available for that purpose as well. So again, just to kind of show you the example, these are some kind of like excerpts from my syllabus schedule. And you'll notice right off the bat that some of the scheduling stuff looks a little funky. That's because this course is given through distance education. That's where I'm actually teaching it. And that's important to note just because some of the dates seem like they're given a lot of breadth, right? There's a lot of time to turn things in, and that's just to kind of like give flexibility to those who are taking the distance education courses because of work or other obligations. So in a face-to-face setting, obviously the due dates would probably be a little bit more sequential. We would have part one due on a certain class date, then maybe the next class would be part two, that kind of thing. That's also why I have all the parts numbered that way. I find that's very helpful for students who are completing this through distance education. They kind of need to be able to check it all off, and it's easy to do that. If it's, kind of part one, part two, part three, it kind of tells them the order to go in, and then just kind of helps serve as a little bit of a checklist for the unit. So just to kind of talk about a couple of these sequences here, my goal with each assignment or each unit is to link it all together through some sort of theme so that the reading really does play into the writing. So like, for example, right here, unit number 2, which features essay 1, and the theme is kind of like careers, goals, and impact. In another video, I talked about the assignment for this unit, and it's a career goals essay where, students write about what their ideal job is, what they're coming to college for, and then explain what they hope to do with that job in the future. And so to kind of link that with some, what might sort of serve as some good brainstorming or some good background information, I have them read an article about college and whether or not college is, worth it in this day and age. And there are a lot of schools that thought about that, and it's important to kind of expose college students to that so that they can really know what they're in for as far as these next several semesters and years go. So we read that, and you can see there are some other parts weaved in here as well. Chapter 11 from the Mosaics textbook is a chapter on exemplification and developing examples, and then the Be Cool to the Pizza Dude essay is just a great little exemplification essay that they do a little activity over. And then we do a little bit of grammar review, and then after that you'll see we're actually getting into the essay project. They just don't necessarily know it yet. So we have this great document called a reading process guide that can be used to kind of guide students through the different reading stages from pre-reading all the way to critical reading. And again, being done through a distance education class, that's a really valuable document to have just because it's hard to facilitate that. But I've also found it to be really useful in some of my face-to-face classes in other courses that I teach. So I'm not saying that it's only for distance education. That's another document that we can make available to you. But the reading process guide gets them to think about the article in depth. Of course, they're wrestling with the topic. It has questions that ask them to consider bias and argumentation strategies, and they do a reverse outline for it. So it really scaffolds into the next assignment in the sequence, the summary. And of course, I've mentioned this in a couple of other videos, summary is that great intersection of writing and reading. So it's satisfying both of those goals in one assignment. It's usually just a paragraph long summary, but again, it is also serving the larger purpose of getting them to think about the assignment topic in more depth. They're essentially doing brainstorming just by thinking about the idea about college and whether it's worth it or how much does it pay, and that asks them the question, what are you here for, essentially, in a perhaps less aggressive way, but still, it's just kind of getting at that idea of the value and the risks and the sacrifices that must be made, which they need to have. So they're thinking about that while they do that summary as well. And then that moves more directly into the essay one pieces, like brainstorming, where they might just write down some notes for what they think they're going to do with that. And of course, by this point, they'll have read some chapters that talk about brainstorming strategies like listing or questioning or clustering or any of those, and that leads into an outline, and that leads into some revision activities, including some self-review and peer review type activities. And then the essay one submission, they turn it in. The unit 2 reflection is really important because I always ask a question that kind of ask them to think about the reading as well as the writing. So I'm making an explicit question to ask them to connect those two things together. How did it help you with coming up with ideas for the essay project? And so that if they didn't realize it before then, they realize it now. Of course, they can always look at that ahead of time, but it will help at the very least for the next essay project. Just to show another example of how it works, I mentioned this in the other video. My essay number 2 is about kind of problem analysis, problem solving analysis, really, where they're asked to kind of consider the world and its various concerns and questions and issues, and pick a couple to just kind of analyze and explain some of the causes and effects for. And so I have them read this article, In a World of Challenges, It's Time to Look at Possibilities. And also the article, they have a much smaller assignment over it, but the idea, happiness is catching, why emotions are contagious. I want them to definitely think about both of those ideas so that they're thinking in a much more positive way, not a defeatist way, towards the issues of the world. And so again, same idea. They do the reading process guide over the article, In a World of Challenges, It's Time to Look at Possibilities. That's doing brainstorming for the essay assignment, even if they don't totally realize it. They do a summary over that, which is them kind of distilling it down into its main points, and then it's time for them to think a little bit more about these issues in terms of like articulating it or analyzing the whatever they observe about some of those issues. I'll say the article, In the World of Challenges, It's Time to Look at Possibilities. They mentioned several of the issues that are going on in the world today. So that might be what they write about. And sometimes students like to use that as their article to cite in this essay if they choose to go that route, which is great. I mean, that's a great way to incorporate the reading done earlier in the unit into the essay assignment. It's not required, but they can totally do that. And then the same thing, we just go through those different stages of the writing process, and then the Unit 3 reflection does the same thing as the Unit 2 reflection did for that. They just kind of connect those different ideas together. Okay, how did the reading help the writing? And they see that the processes are linked together. And obviously, it's all embedded within there anyway. Revision, you have to have good critical reading skills, and then for brainstorming, you have to do good reading in order to figure out ideas. And it's all in there. But if you just kind of pace yourself, pace the assignments, I should say, so that you're kind of like weaving between writing tasks and reading tasks back and forth. Students will do a lot of good reading and a lot of good writing and see the purpose in all of that. So I hope that that's helpful. If there's anything I can provide in terms of some documents or sample assignments or anything like that, of course, I'm glad to do so. Again, my contact information is just mnorman@vinu.edu. That's the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm glad to do whatever I can to be of assistance. Good luck as you work on your course.